first and foremost, I think they will be entertained. I do. I think they will walk away just saying that was a really good night out. And I hope she has a bigger production. I would see it again, or I would tell my friends about it. I think they will be enlightened a bit, that they can be entertained and enlightened at the same time. And I think that they will feel some sort of connection. I mean, you said it about you like Wendy Wasserstein. I connected with her immediately with all her plays. I feel the same way. And all the plays I like, I feel the audience will connect. They will have a good time, first and foremost. They will say it's much better than staying home. It's much better than watching da-da-da. Oh, how come I haven't heard about her before? It's funny how, she can write about illness and even make it funny. I also must say that my play is a lot, and it's about having a person with a mental illness in a family and how it impacts on the family and how it impacts on the children. And that is always underlying my play. And I do think that many families do not want to deal with mental illness, or still in this day and age have a problem with psychotherapy. And if I get some people to maybe look at themselves a little bit more in the process of being entertained, I would be delighted to have them look at, oh, she loved me. She did the best she could. She had an illness, and that's why she was the way she was. It wasn't about me. And the mental illness within the family and within ourselves, I hope it continues to be looked at, without any struggle, without anything. In New York, there's more therapists than there are people in therapy. I mean, it's kind of a way of life. Hi, I'm Nancy Davidoff Kelton. I am the playwright who wrote Finding Mr. RIGHTSTEIN. I hope to see you there. And I'm very excited, a little nervous to be there. And I hope you are just excited. Please listen to this interview about my play. It was a lot of fun, even though my earring fell off. It was a lot of fun being here and talking to you all. Please listen to this interview about my play. I wrote a book on writing because I've been a writing teacher for 40 years and writing from personal experience. That grew out of an article I wrote for Writer's Digest. Then I wrote my memoir, Finding Mr. RIGHTSTEIN, from which I adapted the play. And my memoir, Finding Mr. RIGHTSTEIN, after my mother died, I wrote about her illness and how it impacted on me, both as a child, feeling unlovable, and then in my adult relationships. Why am I the only person who doesn't have the gene to sustain a relationship? And I was writing about dating, and I was writing about my dad, who I was attached to, but there was a price with that. And somehow I put that all together, was who I was as a little girl, why it's taking a reasonably smartish, person, decent enough company, having such a tricky time with a partnership. And I put it together, and I thought both of those topics, not having perfect parents, which everybody in the world, I know one person who didn't relate, and she didn't stay in my class very long, and struggling in relationships, and is it about them, is it about me, what's going on? I put it all together, and I typically see some humor in the pain, and I started sending it out, and there was my memoir. And when I launched Finding Mr. RIGHTSTEIN, the book, I had the best time reading sections with dialogue. I think that if I love dialogue. If I didn't write dialogue, I probably would. I hear voices. I think I'd be in a padded cell. It's my favorite thing. Describing things is more work for me than having my characters talk to each other. And I know playwriting is so much more than that. The first piece I ever sold 50 years ago was called The Teacher's Lunchroom, and it was about two first grade teachers discussing their classes and the reading in each of their classes and their pettiness a little bit in the teacher's lunchroom. But the whole piece was in dialogue, and it's the most fun I have writing. Of course, playwriting is so much more difficult than just, it's what to take out and this and this. I'm learning so much in this process, but it's fun, the writing of dialogue. I don't know if it was a need, but I tell my students, and I feel the same way about me, that if there's not a sense of urgency, you shouldn't write it. There has to be some kind of urgency. I just recently lost a friend, and the end of her life, I'm very pulled into our last few visits, and I wrote about it, and I just had the piece published. And the writing about my mother and having a fractured relationship and making peace with her and finding a place for her to live after my father died, I think they're very universal things, mothers and daughters, and the struggle, and then what to do with mom when she can't take care of herself. Do I take her in? Do I put her in a home? The guilt about putting her in a home, all those things. I was writing bits and pieces of that in the memoir, and then making short plays and having readings. And people came up to me after, I'm going through that with my mother. You made me cry. This is what I'm going through. And I think what I say is very relatable. Instead of staying too long with men who are not going to be keepers, it just all came together. And I wanted to tell this story, and I can't write about other, finding Mr. RIGHTSTEIN is somewhat fictionalized. And I went deeper than I did in the memoir, but I think my story is a story that is very, very, the deeper I go and the more personal I am, the more universal it seems to me that it is. So Joanna, age 50-ish, is divorced, and her father has died, and he's still her main man. She can't quite go forward, and he filled up a lot of space for a lot of reasons. It's partly her and partly the two of them, and she wants to move on, and her mother's in a home, and she goes out with people. She goes to her therapist to find out why is my life not exactly working, and there's flashbacks to who her father and mother were with her, and they both put her down in the looks department. So she didn't think that she was very pretty, and that was difficult. And she had to sort out what was them. I guess we all do. And I think what's our parents and what is us, and what do we carry? And we do carry so much of our past with us, and the stuff, what's self-sabotaging, until we work it out. Oh, they had a problem, and I am lovable. And it takes a lot of work to find oneself and to love oneself enough, I think, to love another person. And I think that's the story I wanted to tell.